Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Gene Coltes, presiding member of today's Regional Development Assessment Panel meeting. I will open the meeting at 9:32 a.m. and in doing so, I acknowledge we are hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we're joined by people from other lands around the state. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. This meeting will be run in accordance with the Development Assessment Panel Standing Orders and DAP Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website. By being present at this meeting, attendees consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. Recordings are also made available on the DAP website and the YouTube page. During the meeting, panel members may refer to technical devices to assist them in considering the information before them. For today's meeting, members that will be participating on the panel, myself as presiding member, to my left, Francesca Lafanti, deputy presiding member, and to her left, Heidi Herget, our specialist member. From the Shire of Manjimup, we have Shire President Danelle Bugh and Councillor Steve Mylan. From the Shire of Augusta-Margaret River, we'll have Councillor Greg Boland and Councillor Melissa Dath. Apologies for today's meeting was Councillor Julia Jean Rice from the Shire of Augusta-Margaret River. Item 3 on the agenda, noting of minutes. The panel notes that minutes of previous meetings are available on the DAP website. At this point, we move into Part B of the agenda for the Shire of Manjimup item, and I will ask panel members to indicate that they've considered all the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda and Part B related information. Please show by show of hands that you have considered all that information. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. I have 2 disclosures of interest. One from Shire President Danelle Bugh as an impartiality interest, and Councillor Steve Mylan as also a impartiality interest. Both members participated in a prior council decision in accordance with their functions as members of a local government, and that being the case, I have consented to them fully participating in today's meeting. Could I check that local government members, whether this particular item that's due before us today has been before us or before you at a briefing or council meeting? Council?
Not the amendment.
Okay. All right. Are any other members or have a item to disclose? No? Okay. We'll move on to item 3, Form 1 DAP applications. We have none. And item 4, the DAP application before us for the change of amendments to the previously approved motel and restaurant development at Pritchard and Naraki Way, Manjimup. We have one presenter before us today, Mr. Alan Stewart from Lateral Planning. Mr. Stewart, you have 3 minutes. You know the process, so if you'd like to start your presentation now, please.
Thanks very much, everyone. Good morning. I'll be pretty brief today. It is an amended application. The original one was approved at the start of 2025. Originally, this motel and restaurant had 76 motel units. The proponent wants to reduce the number of motel units to 40, effectively just changing the modular construction, getting a lot more landscaping in amongst the different motel units. I did originally lodge that revised plan with the Shire, hoping we could get that approved just by clearing conditions, but I think they correctly said we should lodge an amended DA, so here we are. So the main purpose of this amended application is to change to the number of units, a decrease, as I said, from 76 to 40. In doing that, we have also on that plan attempted to address some of the items listed in the Shire conditions, in particular condition 2. So you would have seen my deputation submission for today. I am requesting that some of those items in condition 2 be removed because we feel we have already addressed those items through slightly better setbacks and a little bit of extra landscaping. Run through those items if you'd like, or we can take questions on it. But in essence, I'm suggesting that condition 2 be reworded. And if you look in page 2 of my deputation submission, I'm suggesting that only 3 items be retained in condition 2. Those relating to wayfinding signage. We did provide some details, but probably not enough to clear that item of the condition. So fair enough. I'm suggesting we keep the wayfinding signage element of condition 2. Same with details of fencing to the western and southern boundaries. I had some discussions with the Shire. There was a bit of misunderstanding or some incorrect text notes under plan. So that one should remain, I think. And then the third item would be the fencing at the vehicle access points. We just need to make some finer checks and adjustments to make sure that adequate traffic sight lines are provided at both of those driveway points. So we would like to request that you amend condition 2 by just retaining those 3 items. As I said, that's page 2 of my submission. All of the other items, they effectively relate to landscaping and setbacks, which we contend have been adequately addressed. I think there was also item 2.9 of the recommendation. It talked about deleting one more car bay, adding some landscaping. I don't really have a problem with that as such, as long as we don't have to provide that car bay somewhere else. Consistent with the original approval, there's 20 car bays set aside for shared use by hotel admin, staff, and a restaurant. That's consistent with the original RDAP approval. If that becomes 19 car bays, I don't personally have a problem with that if there's more landscaping, but we feel all of those issues with parking were addressed at the first time round. So we would request also that item 2.9 be removed. The recommended condition 10 in the RAR, Shire's suggesting adding 10.8 to do with the submission of a staging plan. What that's really about is the land being amalgamated into one lot, and there isn't a separate condition for that. So perhaps instead of adding 10.8 to condition 10, it's just a separate condition, that usual wording, the lots be amalgamated into one lot prior to building occupation. And I'm also suggesting condition 12 be deleted. I'm not sure why it's still there, because the amended application achieves the required number of car bays of 60 car bays. That's consistent with the original approval. It was 1 car bay for each motel room. So in this case, 40 bays, and then 20 bays for the shared use of the restaurant and the motel admin back of house and the facilities. So I don't think that condition is required anymore. I think condition 12 can go, because the amended application does in fact achieve what's required there. So yeah, that's really it. The main thing is to change to the motel units and the improved setbacks and landscaping, and I've requested some of those conditions being amended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Panel members, do you have any questions? Yes, Member Herget.
Just one. I note that in your remarks in your submission, you talk about the RAR discusses the need to address service vehicles, deliveries, etc. However, this was not a requirement of the original approval. This is an amended application. So I guess my question is, having fresh eyes on this, how are service, loading, and delivery activities going to be accommodated on the site if there's not a dedicated bay? Is there a series of protocols? Have they been developed in terms of a site management plan? How are they going to be accommodated? It's something that it can be conditioned? Is there?
Yeah, look, thank you for the question. It didn't come up with the original application, but there were a couple of these applications considered at similar times that servicing would occur between checkout and check-in. on any accommodation facility, guest checkout around 10 o'clock and check-in starts at 2 p.m. So cleaning, servicing, all of that occurs in those very quiet hours of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At which time there's more than ample space for parking of service vehicles. There is also on the drawing I've got in front of me, towards the western boundary, there's an area with storage and room for parking of vehicles there as well. So whilst it's not specifically on the plan, we feel the issue is not an issue because it's easily managed during those times between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Also, at which time, as I said, most guests have checked out and there's sufficient parking on site to accommodate any vehicles such as cleaners' vehicles and the like, which tend to use the bays anyway for each motel room when they're doing the cleaning. So,
Okay, further to that, because there's a hospitality element associated with this proposal in terms of like a restaurant, a bar, etc. How are supplies going to be delivered? They're certainly not going to be delivered in a van. I mean, some of them might be, say, alcohol, etc. But in terms of just foodstuffs, that kind of thing, it is a restaurant. It's going to be an operating concern. It's a breakfast bar and obviously a formal restaurant, if you like. So where are the larger vehicles going to deliver? There doesn't appear to be a loading area anywhere on site.
we haven't nominated a specific loading bay, but the entry driveway system with the two entries allows for a medium, small scale commercial vehicle, like a Woolworths delivery vehicle or something to come in, park anywhere that's available there.
They're not going to fit into a conventional bay, so where are they going to park?
Well, between those hours when it's very quiet, there's plenty of room for them to park temporarily on the driveway there in any space that's available. And there's also adequate street parking right in front of the. I personally, I mean, again, if there's a desire for the DAP to put on a condition that talks about service vehicles, I have absolutely no problem with that. My main issue is just having requirement for condition 12 to submit a parking plan when we already have the car bay.
My question didn't relate to parking.
I don't mind if there is a condition service vehicles, we can easily.
It's just more to get a comfort level in terms of the local road network and what the protocols would be. I'm not disputing anything that you've said. I just wanted some clarification. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Other panel members, other questions? Yes, Member Fatty.
Thank you. I'm referring to the requested changes that you have in condition 2. And I'm first going to 2.1. With both 2.1 and 2.4, which seek essentially deeper landscaping, strip fencing, and 4 is street improvement. On both of those, you have indicated needing it to be deleted on the basis of sufficient setback and sufficient activation. Can you just talk about that aspect in terms of what you say the impact of any change on those elements? I'm interested in kind of getting a feeling of what sort of change would be needed and what would that ultimately mean in relation to achieving the interface, so the street engagement, and obviously a landscaping. Is there a significant difference really?
Sure.
Do you know what that ultimately, are you clear about what those two conditions ultimately mean as a modification to the proposal?
Thank you for the question. In answer to your last element of the question, no, we haven't got clear guidance as to what the Shire actually wants in terms of a setback. But from the original approval to this one, we have increased the setback of the motel units to Fritchard Way by about, I think it's an extra 1 to 2 metres. I don't have the plans in front of me, sorry. So we have allowed for a little bit of extra landscaping there. And the same with where the car park aisles come up towards Fritchard Street with the changes to the design. We have already provided a little bit of extra landscaping to that frontage. If the Shire wanted another extra ½ metre, yeah, we could shuffle things around, but we do not know exactly what they want. But I don't think anything further can really be gained from a streetscape perspective doing anything else like that. We feel we've already got a really nice outcome along both frontages, and we have put in the sufficient landscaping to make sure that's a really nice streetscape edge. In relation to item 2.4 that you mentioned, that relates mainly to the restaurant at the corner of the property. If you look on the drawings, and I think there's a 3D render from that building's already got full height glazing pretty much to both of those facades to that corner. I'm not sure what else we could do to activate that corner anymore. We have full height glazing, plus there's an alfresco deck and nice landscaping through there. So our view is that it's a very good outcome as it is. We don't have a lot of certainty as to what further changes the Shire does want. And I think if it was just minor things like half a metre here and there, then it's a bit tokenistic and not really achieving anything.
Thank you. So the proposal, I've got the current plans and the former plans, so I can oscillate between the two. This proposal does increase setback to the residential or the residential component along Pritchard Street.
Yes.
And can you clarify for me, I couldn't quite pick it up. I know on there is some low fencing along, I think it's Naroki Way. Does that act towards the restaurant space? Does that come around the corner to Pritchard Street in the same manner where the restaurant with the alfresco is? Is that the treatment? So the street interface, what I'm trying to extrapolate out is there any high barrier, visually barrier fencing or other treatments on the corner?
No, it's a visually permeable fence that continues around both street frontages there.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. Let me see. My second question relates to condition 2.5, item 2.5. Again, I note that if I'm reading the plans correctly, you can confirm for me. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my back up. That sea container, is the sea container at the is it at the rear of the site, behind the storage area? Is that where it's located? Against the boundary?
Yeah, on the western boundary, yes.
Yeah. And that's got I'm assuming on both those boundaries, by the way of the information, that is a solid fence because it backs onto existing, I don't know if it's residential or commercial, looks like it's residential. So that is a solid 1.8 fence.
There will be a solid fence there, and there is that separate condition item that covers off on details of fencing to that boundary.
So the visual of that building, so you're saying we want to basically paint it a similar colour as the fence, that's what I understand your condition says, and that is effectively screened by fence and screened by the storage from the streets, and it's a reasonable distance from Pritchard Street. It's a reasonable distance from both streets. Is that correct?
That is correct. And if you've got the west elevation in front of you, elevation 4 west elevation, if you zoom in, the majority of that container is screened by the boundary fence, which is indicatively shown on the elevation there. So I think for the most part, that container is screened. Definitely from the street frontages being so far back, and for the most part from adjoining properties.
And my final question, 2.6, or I say it's not quite my final question, 2.6 is your earlier reference about your increased setback to the buildings along Pritchard Street. What do you understand the application is in relation to Pritchard Street? Is it principally the dwellings as opposed to the commercial?
Yeah, I think it's the same answer I gave to item 2.1. To be honest, I think there's a bit of overlap in those two items. Yes, so we have already provided a little bit of an extra setback to those motel units. Yeah, that was my understanding of what that's about, and also to the car park aisle.
Thank you. They were my questions.
Okay, panel members, any questions?
Yes, Steve Mylan from Manjimup.
Councillor?
Mr. Stewart, one of the conditions like to do with number 12 and 10.8 also relate to a staging plan for the construction and opening. I guess my question is really relating to, is it the intention of the applicant, once this development gets underway, to build it in stages and open to the public prior to the completion of, say, all of the units or all of the components, or is it to complete the whole project and then open?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. My understanding is that it's to be done in one stage, and that's really the reason why this amended application is here, to reduce the number of units from 76 to 40. I think the proponent took the view that 76 is probably too many from a demand perspective. So by reducing that number down to 40, it allows them to consider this as one stage.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Just on the construction, is it a? I haven't got the original application right in front of me now. Apologise for that. Are we talking about modular prefabricated buildings being brought to the site, or construction on the site?
It is a modular construction, yeah. So there would be site preparation works, and then they'll be brought to site and completed on site.
Okay. And will these these modules be installed on concrete plinths, or do they have a flat concrete pad? Do they come with a concrete pad straight onto the sort of ground? How does that work?
I probably can't answer that, to be honest. My understanding is that they are put onto. No, I actually don't know. I'm thinking of the other hotel in town.
Yeah.
That I'm also involved in, where it's been done partly staged, different proponent. I think they create the footings like a frame, and then the modulars go onto that frame as opposed to a slab. But there's a little bit of guesswork in my answer there. Apologies.
Okay, so I suppose, you know, my question does relate to that a little bit, in the sense that would there be perhaps, you know, like if it was in those concrete plinths and those modules were then placed on top of, that goes to my question before, really, about it all happening at once rather than a series of concrete monolith plinths on the site for a number of years. So I guess you've answered it in the sense that you're saying it's going to be completed in one stage.
Thank you.
Really a question there, but a question about the fencing to the west. And I think you just mentioned, Mr. Stewart, that it was a 1.8 metre colour bond you were intending there. And I might need some clarification on the planning rules about a commercial heights. I thought it might be 2 metres required for to surround that adjoining residential land. That's all.
Yeah, your staff have recommended an item that requires us to provide those final details of boundary fencing, which we don't object to, and it could well be, we would have to look at that. The site's not flat, so I expect it will be, the height might be staggered as the land falls down the hill a little bit, and whether it's 1.8 or 2 metres, you know, the applicant doesn't have a concern about that. We will provide the fence that's required to the satisfaction of the Shire staff to clear the condition.
And on your reference to on the last page, item 2.8, top of the page there, it does not object to the requirement to provide details of signage. I assume that means fencing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a typo. That's fencing. Yeah, and in the actual condition wording I've got in there, it's got fencing. So I've provided the suggested wording for condition 2 that correctly refers to fencing.
Thank you. Further questions? Yes.
Can I just ask about a clarification of the finished building materials? Do you know what the actual, so the modulars that are going up, will they be done in the finished materials, or will they be cladded?
It has a James Hardy weatherboard cladding that's applied to the walls of the building and a colour-bond roof.
Can I just follow that one up and to do with the restaurant, the material for the restaurant, just checking. It does look like a sea container type construction on the photo. Is that correct, or is that a cladding on a normal frame building?
I couldn't tell you the construction technique, but the materials are depicted on the elevations with a timber finish cladding to the facade.
Okay. That's to the, yeah, okay.
Further questions? If not, Mr. Stewart, we may get back to you again, but we will now move on to the staff from the Shire of Manjimup, Jocelyn Baster and Jason Giadresco. Are they both available? See them at this stage.
Hi, I believe Jason's just a guest in this panel.
Okay, all right. Well, if at this stage, Jocelyn, would you like to make any comments following the presentation and questions have come through, or would you prefer to go straight to questions from the panel?
I would like to probably respond to Mr. Stewart, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So in terms of his response to the Responsible Authority report, I'd just like to do it in that kind of chronological order of the response, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So in terms of condition 2, the 2.1, when we're talking about, when the applicant talks about sufficient setbacks, I'll just refer back to the policy requirement of 3 metres and noting that in some instances, the Pritchard Street landscaping does go down to 1 or potentially 1.5. There isn't a dimension on there. And that is where the car parking is. So there's a bit of a crossover between item 2.1 and 2.6 as condition 2.6 was actually to increase the car parking setback from Pritchard Street. And I believe that's where we just have a little bit of a disagreement in sufficient landscaping at those 2 points where the car parking is outside Unit 34 and Unit 36. At item 2.4, the activation, the applicant has contended that there is sufficient engagement from the restaurant. However, between the former plans and the amended plans, there hasn't been any increase in activation at this point. And so the Shire is just encouraging units 34 and 36 to have larger windows on that northern elevation. And those windows are actually into the living spaces of those units. And if those windows could go to as large as they can, we might get some additional activation at that point. In terms of the shipping container, I'm not sure who on the panel was at the original RDAP meeting for the former plans. However, the condition says the selection of materials or treatment of shipping container, and there was a discussion about whether it was going to be clad. So if the panel could just consider whether a repaint of a shipping container is adequately addressing that part of the condition. There has been some additional elements of the design picked up of contention with the Shire and policy, and that's where we have introduced some other points within conditions, such as the vehicle access points, which the applicant is happy for, but also the landscaping within the car parking area and deleting potentially one bay and having that as landscaping with shade trees. And there was also some infrastructure that is going out into the road reserve that wasn't originally addressed as part of the former plans. So that is fencing at the intersection of Narocki and Pritchard Street, which, as you can see, the fencing is designed to be curved around the corner. However, the lot truncates at the corner. And there is also a shade sail pole located in the verge of Narocki Way. And the Shire would just like some kind of agreement in place that there isn't any liability if that infrastructure is damaged or causes any accidents.
And the other requirements, condition 10.
Yeah, so that is addressing staging and potentially a condition could be incorporated into that. However, I do believe that the construction management plan would address that if a staging plan was to go ahead. If a staging wasn't to go ahead and that is the intention, then yes, an additional condition could be imposed that all lots be amalgamated prior to the occupation of all 40 units.
Okay, and condition 12, which is the car bays.
So I do contend that condition 12 just neatly wraps up the requirement to provide those 60 bays, whether shown on the plan or not. We've already talked about potentially one bay being deleted, and that condition could be revised to 59 bays if the panel was in agreement. I do feel like condition 12 does neatly wrap up a parking management plan that addresses the access requirements for loading and unloading vehicles, service vehicles. It may also have like a set down drop off bay that's required for check-ins, which at this scale of plans doesn't actually represent a true operation of the motel and how delivery vehicles come and how people check in and check out.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, do you have any questions in regard to that? Yes, Member Lafanti.
Thank you for your comments. I would like to go to your first comment relating to 2.1.
Yes.
And this is obviously applicants seeking it to be deleted. You referred to the policy position of 3 metre setback.
Yes.
What is the expectation of that, the language in the current condition on the Pritchard Street? Or what are you anticipating? Are you saying the building should be pushed back further? What's the outcome expectation?
So I don't actually believe that the buildings need to be changed. They have actually been pushed back, and they do achieve at least 3 metres, I think 4 metres in some instance. I think the setback of the building is adequate. There are some, and that's where that overlap between 2.6 comes in, is that the car parking to units 34 and 36 are actually shown with a minimal landscaping to Pritchard Street.
Okay. In relation to 2.4, again, similar question. What is the expectation the Shire has in relation to that condition, particularly in relation to activation? Is it just those units and not the commercial restaurant component? Is it just the units that come down, that face Pritchard Street, that you're concerned about?
I was more concerned that the applicants applicants contending that that has been addressed, that part of the condition has been addressed. However, the restaurant hasn't actually been changed in its design. It hasn't, it's the former plans also show that alfresco out onto Pritchard Street with the glazing on that side as well. So in terms of the argument that that sub-condition has been addressed, the Shire contends that there hasn't been any changes to address that.
Thank you. I would agree from looking at the plans that I have that the restaurant component on the corner of Pritchard Street and Narocki Way does not appear to have any changes. The plans that I've got in front of me on both the current approval and the proposal shows alfresco areas with accessible points by doors. What are you expecting to see as the change? So I'm trying to get some clarity around what is expected. I accept and note and agree with your comment that it has not changed from the original plans, that form and scale. But what does the Shire ultimately expect in terms of activation?
So I would say that the units 34 and 35, so the ones that are the most northern in the design, if you have a look at the northern elevation 1, you'll see that those two units have quite minor windows on that facade. And if those can be increased, I believe that would satisfy that condition.
Thank you. So in that, sorry, can I continue asking the question?
Yes, go.
So in that context, just now focusing on the Pritchard Street frontage for the units, when I compare the previous plan, the 2025 plan, and the current plan, it appears from my read of the plans that the change on this proposal is that those two units that you're referring to, whilst not necessarily physically the exterior visual, but there's an increase in the setback and therefore landscaping to those units on Pritchard Street. Is that how you read it, or is and would you say that additional landscaping does, in your view, do anything in relation to addressing that interface?
It has certainly softened that interface, and I do also note that there is now windows in those two units as well, which previously there weren't. I was just encouraging potentially a greater activation from inside to outside, noting that potentially, and I will probably concede that the increase in landscaping would probably block out that visual surveillance anyway.
Thank you. My last question is, could you just clarify your comments that you said in relation to condition 10 changes? Applicant is suggesting that condition 10 be modified by deleting 10.8 and replacing it with words that the existing lots to be amalgamated to one lot prior to occupation of the development. Did you have, I didn't quite follow what you just said on that one, if you could just repeat it.
Yes, so I agree that that could be replaced with a new condition. I would just like to ensure that that condition is ensuring that we don't have multiple stages of building permit and occupancy permit applied for, so that it would read more of the existing lots to be amalgamated into one lot prior to occupation of the 40 units associated with the development approved.
Right, and my final question relates to the points that you spoke about in terms of the infrastructure that is shown on plans to sit outside of the boundary on the corner of Pritchard and Narocki Way. My question specifically is, typically, infrastructure on the road reserve requires a separate approval from the relevant local authorities. Do you require a separate approval for works in the road reserve, or are you asking us to make a judgment on that? Because typically they would be subject to separate processes. So could you clarify?
So it's my understanding that the Shire do require permits to work in the verge. It's not necessarily handled then through the DA process. So I do take your point. Potentially it needs to come out and maybe be advice notes. But it is the request to have it contained in the development approval is to make sure that the applicant is aware that those works aren't as of right approved.
So on that, I'm going to correct you 1 second. On that, given that comment, I have two parts to my follow-up. One, there's an original approval that sits in place currently, which I could not see a condition that said that.
Sure.
And two, if you were requesting that we consider a condition, what would the language of that condition be? If you can provide response to those, I think the applicant wanted to make a comment on that.
Can I just follow up with a query on that? There may be services in the verge close up to the boundaries, particularly underground power, Telstra, gas or whatever. It may require some consent or at least notification to the service authorities. I mean, looking at the shade sale, for example, I'm just wondering why you'd want to even entertain a post out there for a shade sale.
Thank you, Chair. I do recall that we might have talked about this at the former approval, but I actually can't recall what was the outcome. And we might have had exactly the same discussion about whether it should be on this approval or not. So forgive me if it had already been brought up and I can't recall the outcome.
Okay.
The applicant, do you want to make a comment specifically on that question?
Yeah, thank you. I suspect it's a bit of a drafting error, to be quite honest. I think the applicant would be much more comfortable if there was a condition or a requirement saying thanks to be within the property boundary and the shade sale. I don't know why. I haven't spoken to Zoe, the architect. It was probably a bit of architects being a bit creative. I think we'd be better off just having those structures in the lot boundary.
Brick fences present a problem, don't they?
Yeah. So why mesh? Yeah, I just think it's an error, to be quite honest. And I think it would simplify everything if we just had it.
Okay.
So, officers, given the comment from the applicant, do you have, or can you provide us with some suggested language that essentially says that all structures to be contained within the property boundary, and we can consider that. If you've got better language than what I've just said, that would be great.
Off the top of my head, no, but you could probably say that all development associated with the approved all development associated with the subject approved development, all infrastructure, all construction associated with the subject approved development shall be contained wholly within the subject site.
Sounds good.
I have no other questions.
No other questions? No? Councillors, any other questions?
Yes, I've got a question. Steve Myler from Manjimup. Is that the sort of the pedestrian access to the site? There's no footpaths on any of these verges, and the access points come sort of straight off the street. And I don't know if this goes to activation or just common sense, but some capacity for the applicant to we'd probably not condition it, but look at some way of including footpaths on the verges so that the pedestrians, customers would then have, pedestrian access. And I suppose the other part of that is and it goes to the point 21 on our officer's recommendations here about taking responsibility for maintaining that verge, keeping it generally in good condition. Is the applicant got any comments to make about the possibilities of those two things? One is the agreement to take care of the verge, and two, to consider some pedestrian footpathing.
Do it.
I haven't really thought about it. I don't think there'd be any harm in some sort of advice note. Because you're right, there is no footpath, but the drawings do show a footpath saying not part of this DA. So yeah, perhaps it's something that I could chat to the Shire about. Get that footpath in place, at least for, you know, that corner element of the site, perhaps. Maybe there's a contribution, but I think an advice note rather than a condition would be comfortable.
Thank you.
Just going back, the original approval, I'm just searching for the condition. List of conditions. I did have them here. Was there any comment made regarding the verge? That condition 21, is that the one councillor referred to?
That's Chair. That's a proposed new condition to be added in the responsible authority recommendation.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. It's not talking about the verge as such, it's talking about those additional assets where we are deleting from the condition. So the proposed condition 21, if we're going to condition that none of the assets are to be on the verge, then that condition falls away. So
correct.
If there's a proposal to introduce another condition, then we'll have to consider that in the context of this application and the previous one. So we'll move on from that. Can perhaps in discussion look at another condition or a requirement for the proponents to liaise with council. Okay, are there any other further questions? Yes.
Can I just ask some clarification about the assets being contained within the proponent's boundary? Does that include the curvature of the fence on Pritchard and Naroki? Or is it just sales? Yeah.
From my perspective, it was querying, if I may make a comment, from my perspective, I was querying any structures that are part of this development that sit within the public domain, which would include the curved fence. Typically, those require separate approval from the local authority or relevant agency, and that's what my query related to, both the fencing on that corner as well as the entrance shade structure for the shade sail.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions of the officer, we can now move on and we can move into the panel's discussion and deliberations on the report. In order that we can do that, I'll need a mover and a seconder to the listing recommendation under the RA. Do I have a mover? Yes, Member Lafanti. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Member Herget. Member Lafanti used to speak to the item.
So I'll start off by saying that from my perspective, I am satisfied that this is an appropriate Form 2 application. Initially, when I looked at the proposal, I thought it sounded like a significant change. I then considered it against the development that's already been approved and noted that, as indicated in the RA, that it is very similar. In fact, it is, in my view, a superior design, creating greater separation between the buildings and therefore providing an improved streetscape outcome with the inclusion of landscaping. The proposal remains, as I say, in terms of the restaurant and communal facilities, largely in the same location, and it has the range of same amenities on it. From my perspective, I also agree with the parking arrangements on the site, and given the proposed layout, I would concur with the applicant's comments in relation to servicing. I am less concerned about dedicated servicing for the site, including the restaurant, because of the configuration of the driveways, which provide a good accessibility through the site and good areas for parking and standing. And as far as I'm concerned, the nature of this proposal, I would also concur that typically there is a more of a lull in the middle of the day in checkout, etc. And so from that perspective, I am not proposing any changes in relation to the ability for site servicing. I would, however, at this juncture, like to move a couple of amendments, seeing though I get to speak at this point, if I may.
Okay, amendment number 1.
My amendment number 1, and I will deal with them individually or as a group. I'm dealing with condition 2. And I am proposing a deletion of condition 2.1 and deletion of condition 2.6, if I may, as amendment 1.
Okay.
Do you want me to give the reason?
We'll get a second. Oh yes, you can give us your reason and then give us a second.
My reason is that the commercial development retains its street.
Sorry, I'll get a second first. Yes, Member Herget. Sorry, Francesca.
My reason is that the development retains its street interface with the commercial development, and it has increased its interface on Pritchard Street by increasing the setback and increasing the landscaping to it. As also clarified by the officers, those buildings, whilst they have smaller openings based in Pritchard Street, they do in fact have openings compared to the earlier one. And from that perspective, I am satisfied that the street interface is an improvement on the previous one, and therefore am supporting of deleting both those conditions.
No, you did
2.1 and 2.6 is what I
6 is
deleting to do with landscaping.
okay. That's the setbacks and landscaping.
Correct. They're dealing with both those.
Thank you. All right. Member Herget, do you wish to speak?
No, no comment. I support the application.
Support that. Is there any other member wish to speak for or against the amendment?
Thank you.
No, I'll just say that I agree with the amendments. The applicants have given a sufficient reason to that, and I agree with the comments made by Member Lafantis. That being the case, I'll put it back to Member Lafanti to close debate.
Nothing further to.
Nothing further. All right, I'll put amendment number 1 to delete condition 2.1 and 2.6. All in favour? Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you.
I would like to move amendment 2 to delete 2.4.
2. Okay, do I have a seconder for that? I'll second it. Yes, Member LaFan.
I've already spoken about this today. I'm satisfied that the Pritchard Street interface has, particularly in the conversation that the applicants indicated they were the officers indicated they were comfortable with the commercial to some degree. I am satisfied that the commercial, with its setback, its open opportunity for alfresco dining on those on that very corner, and the setback to the dwellings, the increased setback to the dwellings satisfies the engagement and activation, as well as the interface and design.
Thank you. A second, I concur, and I note that there is extensive full height glazing to those facades and landscaping in between. I think there's good activation and surveillance from that area. So I'll open it up for any other member wish to comment on amendment number 2 to delete 2.4. Yes, Shire.
Given that the officer is satisfied with those conditions, I support that amendment as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll go back to the mover to close debate on it.
I have nothing further to
No
add.
further, all right, I'll put amendment number 2 to delete condition 2.4 to all those in favour. That's unanimous, thank you.
I will deal with condition 2.9.
It's amendment 3.
Again, I wish to delete it and for similar reasons that I said earlier.
Do I have a seconder? Second that then. Sorry, that's condition
2.9.
9.
My reasoning is, again, similar reasoning. I am comfortable with the proposal we have before us and the modifications in relation to providing sufficient landscaping and setback to Pritchard's.
Yes, seconder, I'll agree. There's an increase in setback to Pritchard with some additional landscaping and footpath there. I think that there's enough space in between the bays to break it up. So I'm supporting amendment number 3.
Can I just clarify, are we talking about the car parking spaces just to the west of the restaurant and reception area?
That's correct, councillor, yes. So it's deletion of condition 2.9.
Yeah.
Anyone wish to speak for or against that?
Yeah, I'd speak against it. I like the idea of having a tree breaking up that long stretch of car parking area as per the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Any other speaker for or against? If not, I'll close debate through Member Lafanti.
I suppose my only comment is I am comfortable that this plan has got some opportunities for larger pockets of landscaping that does provide an interface with the street. I am less concerned about one additional bay. I think parking, like most things, we are quite car-dominated environment, and so I'm not particularly uncomfortable with the layout of parking. I'm more comfortable. The proposal has increased the landscaping opportunities at street frontage.
Okay, thank you. That said, I'll put amendment number 3 to delete condition 2.9 to the vote. All those in favour? 3 against? 2. Carry. Thank you.
At this juncture, I also have another amendment. My amendment 4 now will be to delete 2.5. I can speak to that when you want me to.
Delete condition 2.5. Let's have a quick look at that. Yes, okay. Do I have a seconder for that? I'll second it. Member Lafanti.
Thank you. Having discussed this matter at today's meeting and clarified that the proposal that the sea container that we're referring to is as located on the site against a boundary wall screened by both landscaping on either side as well as existing storage, I am satisfied that the inclusion of a painted treatment on it, similar colour as the boundary fence, is an appropriate outcome, and that a facility of this nature is heavily screened from pretty much all sides. So I'm comfortable with that change.
Okay, I concur with that. It is, as you said, it's hard up against a fence. It's screened significantly from any of the public or the movement area within the site by units, and also the bike storage area, and significant landscaping in and around it. I think it'll just a paint job to highlight the fact that it's keeping fencing, colour-bond fencing on the boundary. So I'll support that. Does any other member wish to speak to amendment number 4 to delete condition 2.5?
Can I just clarify, sorry, that when we're deleting 2.5, it still requires the sea container to be painted in an appropriate colour?
Yes, it does.
It shows that on the plan. The plan indicates that material, that information.
Yes. Pale eucalyptus colour.
Clarity for that. It would. I'm not changing any details on the plan, so the information contained on the plan is still subject to the obligations for the applicant.
Okay, that answer your query.
Well, I think so, but is it?
Okay.
I thought it was our recommendation that it be painted. I've just got to go back to it, sorry.
Okay. All right, then just to complete, do you wish to speak further on that? Member Lafanti? Debate?
No, I don't have any others at this point in time.
No.
Right, we'll vote on amendment number 4 to the lead condition number 2.5. All those in favour? Against? Okay. 3-2, the amendment is carried. Thank you. Member Lafanti.
No, I have pretty much said everything I want to say. I would, at this juncture, I'm contemplating a new condition, although it's possibly covered by condition 21, but I will actually add a new condition nonetheless. The new condition that I suppose I'm really trying to clarify is that the development and all associated structures to be located wholly within the subject site property boundaries, and any structure outside the property boundary or within the road reserve requires separate approval from the local authority.
Is that substituting proposed condition 21?
I wasn't going to substitute it because this is about the manner in which the occupation occurs. So it's saying if you're going to put it in there, these are the things you need to do. I'm saying that before they go down to doing these things, they have to actually agree that the Shire will even allow it in the road reserve. That's how I read it, but I'm happy to take guidance from you.
Perhaps that would be an advice note rather than a condition.
Happy for it to be an advice note. That
Yeah.
doesn't. It's really making the statement that it is a separate matter. It is separate to our determination to authorise anything within the road reserve.
Introducing a new advice note to advise that. Well,
Could you? We have got it.
I think
Could you just put it on the board for us, please?
I think it would be better to address the proposed condition 21 and have that deleted
That would be.
in the first instance. So
I'm not uncomfortable with the wording of condition 21. My intention of this advice note or wording is really that in the that it's very clear that we're not actually making a judgment about in the road reserve today. If that goes on, it has a separate discussion. 21, in my read of it, covers it, but I suppose I was trying to be quite particular.
Shire has just put their hand up to provide a response if you're happy to take.
Yes, I'll take comment from the Shire officer, please.
Hi, just a suggestion, members, that your suggested condition should stand, I believe, and then potentially recommended condition 21 drops into an advice note associated with that condition.
I'm comfortable with that arrangement. If the member's comfortable with me to so that would be this amendment, which would be amendment 4, would be a new condition, the one I just read out, and then proposed condition 21 would become an advice note, new advice note. And that's what I'm happy to move.
Okay, can we have the wording again for that? Yours. Is this the wording that you're proposing?
Yes, I just sent it through to the, so instead of the Shire, the local authority at the bottom, instead of the Shire, from the local authority.
From the local.
Or can be from the Shire of Manjimup, I don't mind. Actually, you put from the Shire of Manjimup.
Okay, so that's amendment number.
That's amendment number 5. So
Five.
it is new condition. And then it's the proposed condition that's in the agenda. The second part of it will be that the proposed condition 21 is now not an advice note, is moved to an advice note.
And then we'll work out the numbers after.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, everyone clear with that? Moved by
Yeah.
Fandy. And seconder, please. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Councillor Mylan. Member LaFanti views to speak to.
My rationale, I've spoken a little bit about this today, is really that the opportunity to put it in the road reserve have a series of considerations that need to be given, including where services are, general footpath movement and safety for people on the verge, as well as any obligations that the Shire has in relation to maintenance and or safety issues, and also material types being frangible or otherwise that a material might need to be within a road reserve. For those reasons, I don't think it's appropriate that that in this particular case we make a final judgment on it, and this condition enables clarity for the applicant that they need to have those conversations with the Shire and provide the associated documentation and discussion details should they wish to pursue any infrastructure outside their property boundary.
Okay. Councillor Mylan, a seconder.
No, I'm okay.
Okay, any other discussion on the item? If not, back to Member LaFanti.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. I'll put amendment number 5 to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Back to Member LaFanti.
No, finished.
No further. Okay, seconder.
That's you.
Member Herget, no discussion. Okay.
Discussion.
Any other member wish to speak to the substantive item as amended so far? If not, I will speak to it. I concur that the proposal has addressed the issues in terms of the Form 2. It's not intensifying the use on site, and it's not introducing new land uses. It's in fact enhancing the landscaping, and we've seen through the discussion that the development plans still propose a very high level of finish to the development, and also the new structures. In terms of traffic, parking, I support the changes that have been made. In terms of the encroachment into the road reserve, we've discussed that. I think it'll be a non-issue given what the proponents planner has said. There's plenty of street activation and glazing to the. I think that I would just like to move another amendment, and that is to delete condition number 12. It asks for a detailed parking plan design that shows 60 bays. Well, I think the development in fact incorporates all of those, so I think perhaps the condition falls away. So I'm seeking a seconder for that, for amendment number 6 to delete condition 12. I have a seconder. Yes, as I said, the condition really asks for a parking plan design. I think the submitted plan shows exactly where the parking is going to go. The aisle widths, circulation area, driveways, points of ingress and egress are already shown on the plan. So there's no need for an alternate cash in lieu payment. So I think really that's just introducing something that has already been complied with. So that's the reasoning behind my amendments. Member.
Just to follow on from that, I think that there's a built-in redundancy in the revised plan. I think that it more than adequately shows car parking layout and any associated dimensions and compliance with the relevant standards.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to?
Just a comment, I suppose, question. Is this now become redundant because we didn't eliminate the parking bays for the trees? Is that why that lies with the 60 bays type thing? Is that what that's about?
No, it's just that it asks for a parking plan design to show all of the parking bays that are there. The other previous condition addressed the trees. So it's just to do with a plan showing parking layouts. I'm assuming that the plan complies with the scheme requirements because there was no need to ask for amendments to the plan through the RDAP.
So there's an adequate number of parking bays on site for the size of the development.
There's 60 bays that requires 60 bays. Yep. Okay. If there's no further discussion on it, I'll move a vote on condition amendment 5 to amendment 6 to delete condition 12. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. I've got no further. We have a condition to amalgamate lots prior to.
Wasn't moved, no.
Well, I'll move another condition, number 7, that the existing lots amalgamated into one lot prior to occupation of the development. Do I have a seconder? Yes, President, Shire President. Thank you. I think it goes without saying most fairly standard conditions that developments don't straddle new lots. So the amalgamation into one lot prior to occupation is one that I'm moving.
Yep.
New condition. Seconder.
Yeah, I concur. I think it's important that we make sure that this development is complete before opening rather than that staged opening, so that we're not looking at a building site at opening.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other member wish to speak? Yes, Member Lafanti.
Thank you. I agree with this amendment because there was earlier conversation during today's meeting that talked about the discussion around staging of the development, and we've had some material provided to us that the applicant's intention is to develop the project as one proposal and not to stage it. Therefore, I'm comfortable with the recommendation for amalgamation.
Okay, any other speaker? If not, I'll put the amendment to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. I have no further to add. No further speakers. Go back to the mover. Close debate. All right. All right, I'll put the recommendation for approval as amended. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on from that, item 5, section 31 SAT reconsiderations. We have none. I'd like to thank our President Duke and Councillor Mylan for their attendance, and also presenters and Shire Officer Jocelyn for her participation as well. Thank you. Now we'll take a break as we move on to the next part of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Yes. All right.
Good morning, Shire of Augusta-Margaret. It's Ashley. Just confirming we've got Jacob and Matt.
Hi, Ashley. Yep, Jacob and Matt here.
Thank you. We'll just get started shortly.
There you go. Okay. All right. Well, we're back to part C of the meeting today. And I'd like to welcome Councillor Greg Boland and Councillor Melissa Darth to the meeting from the Shire of Augusta-Margaret River. For those new to the meeting, I remind everyone that the meeting is being run in accordance with RDAP standing orders, and panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I'll now, panel members, ask you that you have considered all the documentation contained within Part C of the agenda and Part C related information by a show of hands. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. Councillors, was this item discussed at a briefing or council meeting before?
No, it wasn't.
No. Okay, thank you. Then do any other panel members have any items of interest to disclose? No. Okay. Move on to item 3, Form 1 RDAP applications, and we have one before us for a single-storey 82-child capacity childcare premises on Mecklenburg Drive in Rapids Landing. We have no presenters today, but we do have Miles Rowe from Lester Group and Adrian Lester from Margaret River Proprietary Limited to answer any questions from the panel if required. Do we have any questions from the panel? Yes, Member Herget.
Okay, I've got a number of questions. It is directed at the applicant. Do you have your traffic consultant, the person that prepared the tech note, available for questions?
Presume that's from Mr. Rowe or Mr. Lester.
Good morning. No, the traffic consultant is not attending the meeting.
Okay. Well, then I'll ask my questions and they might go into the void. All right. So is there a parking management plan that's been prepared for this site?
Not as yet. Right.
And look, a couple of questions relating to deliveries and service vehicle movements. How are the deliveries going to be accommodated on the site?
M- My understanding is there'll be deliveries. There's a section there that enables in the parking that enables delivery vehicles to attend onto the site, and I believe that the majority of the deliveries will be after and before hours. I think that's probably an operational issue we'd need to discuss further with the tenant.
Okay, I guess further to that, so the car parking layout is typically when it's developed, it's to cater to a maximum of a B99 in size, which is large passenger type vehicle. Waste vehicles presumably will be collecting from the site or from the road. Because of the designated bin store at the northeastern corner of the car park. So how would the waste vehicles, how are they collecting the rubbish? Are they collecting it line haul along Pinia Lane, or are they going through the car park and then having the bins pushed out to the car park to collect?
My understanding is that they will be collecting it from the bins will be presented out to Pioneer Lane, and they'd be collected from Pioneer Lane.
Has a waste management plan been done for this application?
Not as yet, no.
Okay. All right. The other questions I have relate to traffic. There is a brief tech note that was prepared by PGA, which was appended to the responsible authority report. And it mainly dealt with the proposal to a justification to provide access directly to Mecklenburg Drive. My understanding in the either approved ODP or structure plan, there was no access because previously this was intended to be residential, from my understanding. Okay? And
That's correct, yes.
So the technical issues largely addressed in that tech note just relate to justifying an access point to Mecklenburg Drive, in addition to the one that is proposed to Pinia Lane. Now, what was not addressed, well, I guess my first question is the traffic generation on a daily basis that was alluded to in the tech note seems extremely low and underestimated by at least 100% in my experience relating to childcare centers. Certainly the number of childcare centers that have come across my purview in DAP matters that I've been appointed to sit. What's the justification by underestimating the traffic generation for the childcare center to that degree in the tech note? And the other question I have is on the side road, on the right-hand side, there's a roundabout. What's the road called? It's called, okay, at Lescheneau Avenue and Mecklenburg Drive. Anybody coming down Lescheneau can't turn into Pinia, from what I can understand. They have to do a double back onto Lescheneau, and I'm interested to see what the overall traffic impacts are going to be if you have a double back movement, particularly in light of the fact that the traffic generation for the center seems to be underestimated by 100%, and what the impacts are going to be on the relevant road links.
Oh, look, I'd have to refer back to our traffic consultant in relation to that. That's a technical question. Able to answer. Sorry.
Okay, because it seems to me that's material to this application. All right. All right, I've got questions for council. That's all I have for the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Yes, councillor Duff.
Yeah, I'm just curious, similar, I've got questions about the traffic management. I'm just curious about why the entry and exit was put onto the laneway, which doesn't seem to have much space and much entry from the north, as mentioned by the other panel member, and that the exit only was onto Mecklenburg Drive. I was curious to know why, yeah, the traffic management was put that way around.
Right.
I think again, that's a technical question. I suppose the intent was, you're quite right, that originally there was no access available onto Mecklenburg because it was originally considered to be developed as a part residential use. I think the intent is to have the original intent was always to have an ingress and egress off Pioneer Lane. That was considered to be a more appropriate, the most appropriate point, exit and entry point. We did obviously put forward the opportunity to have an additional egress point onto Mecklenburg Drive because it meant that the traffic was flowing in a single direction effectively, and that was a safety consideration. It was supported by both the traffic consultant and our proposed tenant for the development.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's been, like, reading the public submission, there's a bit of concern about how much traffic is already going in and out of the only one entry and exit of Rapids Landing. So it's probably a bit of a moot point, but just to confirm that before the construction of the daycare centre, that Leschenaultia will be permanently opened to John Archibald Drive?
That's correct.
Yeah, because I think that'll make a big difference for all the public submissions concerned about that traffic management, but they cannot turn from Leschenaultia into the Pinea Lane.
Not under the current arrangements, no.
Yeah. Okay. And just looking at the drop off, the street parking on Mickleburg Drive, this will probably be used quite intensely during those peak periods of the daycare centre. How many bays are actually on that street parking?
I believe that's fronting Mecklenburg. Is that the question? Sorry. Yeah, there's at least 2, as well as additional street parking off Frohawk Loop.
Yeah, I think this would be another opportunity to look at that, like to have adequate street parking for drop off and pick up, and maybe, I don't know, along the lines of the development to consider it being a timed drop off bay during operational hours, because looking at the school quite close, that becomes quite an issue with the street parking and it being used for permanent residents to stay there, and that would, that could also be quite a big issue during the construction of, especially when the other stuff in the village centre starts to be built out.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No, that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious about the situation with the traffic into Pioneer Lane from Leschenaultia. I thought, looking at the plans, it seemed fairly clear that, say, people heading north on Leschenaultia Avenue would be able to turn left into Pioneer Lane, but I've heard it twice, know that won't be the case. Am I getting that right, that there's no left turn from Leschenaultia Avenue into Pioneer Lane?
That's not correct. There'll be a left turn available from Leschenaultia into Pioneer Lane.
100% that. Oh, sorry, I thought that was being said. So.
No, okay. Any further?
I'm trying to clarify that. So, okay. And as far as turning right into Pioneer Lane from Leschenaultia Avenue, so heading south,
yes.
They'll be able to turn in. No, there won't be a right-hand turn. That's
correct. Yeah, they'll have to double down to the roundabout on the corner of Mecklenburg, and then back up into Pioneer, or alternately turn right onto Mecklenburg and then into Frohawk Loop and then right into Pioneer Lane as well.
Yeah. Okay. And I was just wondering about Pioneer Lane and whether there's a footpath on Pioneer Lane. Seems like there's footpaths around the rest of the site, but is there no footpath on Pioneer Lane on this plan?
Yeah, I'd have to defer to that. Obviously, the civil works are still close to completion at the moment, and I'd have to check to see if there's a footpath anticipated for Pioneer Lane. I understood that there was going to be, but I'd have to come back on that.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it from the plan. I was particularly looking at page 19. Maybe the Shire might be able to help us out on that when we get to it. But would you expect that you would have a footpath along Pioneer Lane? I'm getting a nod there. that know. And so you're not anticipating much foot traffic, even though there might be a shopping centre across the road fairly soon? I get the reasoning behind that you weren't going to have the space available for a footpath.
Mr. Lester, did you wish to make a comment?
It's not, Pioneer Lane's a service lane for vehicles to enter the car park for the Early Learning Centre. There is a footpath along Mecklenburg. And I think, and I'm pretty sure that there's a footpath along Leschenaultia. It's not intended that there'll be foot traffic along Pioneer Lane.
Okay. That's definitive.
Yes, just wondering if there's any way to deter that.
Well,
signage, because I can imagine people walking along there, particularly an attractor like a childcare centre, attracting foot traffic.
Well, given there's a link between Pioneer Lane and Mecklenburg Drive, a footpath linking both, but those laneways are usually about 6 or 6.1 metres wide, and there's no room, and it's property boundary to property boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe we can discuss that, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions? Yes, Member LaFontaine.
My question is possibly to the officers rather than the applicant. It relates to an earlier question about on-street parking along Mecklenburg Drive. The conditions of this approval do not deal with on-street parking. My question to both the applicant and the city officers, is this parking on Mecklenburg Drive provided as part of the development or part of the estate or something completely different and not forming part of any of the discussions at this point in time? It's shown on the plan here, so I'm trying to clarify who's responsible for it, essentially because it's shown on the plan.
Mr. Lester?
The parking along Mecklenburg is part of the structure plan, and therefore the developer of the estate is responsible for providing the parking along Mecklenburg.
And could I have a follow-up question? And therefore any control, timing or otherwise of those bays, I'm assuming is going to fall into determination by the Shire. Is that correct? At a later stage, not by applicant, not by the developer, but it'll be a Shire. Once the roads are obviously under the Shire's control, it'll be the Shire's responsibility to make judgment about any control or timing of those bays. Is that correct?
Look, I wear two hats here. I'm also director of the developer of the estate. That is part of stage 8 of construction, which is currently being conducted and being constructed at the moment. And we expect that those roads are being put in as we speak. And those roads along the Mecklenburg Road frontage are not part of the current application that we're reviewing at the moment. They are part of the construction of stage 8 of the land developers stage 8 construction program.
So this lot for the childcare centre would be contingent upon, the title for that lot would be contingent upon those subdivision works being completed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So my question essentially goes to, the plans in front of us show indented embayment parking on Mecklenburg Drive and Thorpe Loop.
Yep.
So what I'm trying to clarify is they're not part of the application before us. So I suppose my question really goes to that information, because from what I'm hearing, they are not part of the application before us, but they are proposed as part of an approved structure plan, layout and design.
Correct.
And therefore, in the public domain are matters ultimately, once completed, are the responsibility of the Shire, once handed over, to control on any sort of signage or parking. Is that correct? So this application does not deal with on-street parking at all?
No.
Thank you. That was, sorry, long way to get to that. Thank you.
Yes, Member Hergot?
Can I ask a question of council?
Not just yet. I'm just going to exhaust any questions of the proponents. If there are none, we'll now move on to the Shire officers from the council. Jacob.
Hi.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank
And
you.
you've heard some of the comments made. Do you wish to make comment on those or respond to those, or do you wish to just go straight to questions?
We're happy to go straight to questions.
Okay, Member Hergot.
Okay. Further to some questions that I asked the applicant, is there a reason why the transport impact statement was not prepared for this application?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, pre-lodgement. I'm not sure about whether there are any discussions that ultimately it was just fine to have an abbreviated, abridged statement rather than a full traffic impact statement.
Okay, but the in the appendix at the RAR wasn't an abridged TIS, it was a tech note that addressed just specifically the proposed access to Mecklenburg.
Yeah, sorry, that's
deviated from the approved structure plan. So no answer.
Well, this is a
TIS wasn't done because clearly there's issues with the traffic generation, and it would have been useful to see what the justification was to reduce it by 50% by comparison to conventional estimation and prediction. And in terms of the double backing along Leschenaultia Drive, that's a double impact on that particular road. And notwithstanding Pinia, which I think is the rear laneway, which is going to service primary access, I believe capacity is about 300 to 400 cars per day for a lower order road such as that. But if the traffic generation has been underestimated, potentially the number of vehicles that would be using that particular section of road might actually exceed the practical capacity. So I come back to my question that these are issues presumably that would have been addressed in a TIS or a TIA had it actually been requested from council.
They would have. This is a subdivision that hasn't even reached completion yet, and which has been designed around the idea that there will be commercial development occurring here, including a childcare centre. So the subdivision itself anticipates this land use at that location, and so that reporting was done at an earlier stage.
Any reason why it wasn't included in the RER?
Because we didn't receive it as part of the package of the application.
So that reporting is not in the public realm to be included.
Correct.
So, okay. Right. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions of the staff? Yes, Councillor Boland.
Yes, I was wondering about Pioneer Lane and the lack of pedestrian footpath. It seems the situation there. Am I correct that there's footpaths around the other three boundaries, but nothing on Pioneer Lane?
That's right, Councillor. It'd be unusual to have a footpath on a lane. They're a very low speed environment, and there's no real reason that you would anticipate the public wanting to access this development from that side, from the rear of the development.
I did find before that there's going to be a shopping centre across the road, and I can imagine a fair bit of traffic between the childcare centre, people dropping off children in the parking area, then going over the road to the shopping centre, or even dropping off their children by foot. So just wondering about the lack of footpath, but I guess what I'm hearing is that the view was taken that there wasn't going to be the need because it's a laneway.
Correct.
Yeah. On the issue of the lots, I did bring that up yesterday, and I think there's just a typo in the RAR about amalgamating lots 221 and 221. I think you meant 221 and 222 clearly, but it's also amalgamating lot 223. Should there be? I assume the Shire would be preferring amalgamation of all the lots into one lot. Haven't noticed any condition around that. Any comment on that part of it?
No, Councillor, thanks for picking that up. The lots haven't actually been created yet, so it's more, it's less an amalgamation and more an adjustment of what was originally intended being 3 lots, rather than creating those individual titles. What will happen is that only 1 lot will be created.
Should that be a condition? Maybe we will be discussing that later, but I raised that.
Maybe I can add a little bit to it, in that the structure plan, which is not a cadastral plan showing 3 created lots, is being varied as part of this process to, instead of having 2 residential lots and a childcare centre, the ultimate on the structure plan will now just show 1 lot, which will be created as part of the subdivision process, as it were. So there's no need for a condition. It's just that's how it'll form, because there will only be 1 lot created on the structure plan. Does it need a condition from here to confirm that?
Certainly, a condition's not going to hurt, but I agree with the way that you have articulated it, in the sense that both the proponent and the Shire are waiting to see the outcome of this decision, and then a lot will be created accordingly.
Thank you. We'll discuss that. Okay. Any further?
Yes, I had a question about the fencing, and there's a condition 28 regarding the fencing, but in the RAR, it was said that there was to be a condition around that, but they seem to be a little bit different. I don't know whether you picked up on that there's any reason for that. I could go to the particular parts. I think it's on page 13, there's comment around, we'll put in a condition around this, but then the condition that appeared slightly different. I don't know. Yeah, I'm seeking information on the variation and whether it's material. So another comment that I think condition 28 probably needs a bit of wordsmithing. It doesn't read terribly well, but maybe go to that first point of they seem to be slightly different.
Well, we would welcome your feedback in terms of getting the wording of that condition into a form that you would be happy with. I don't feel like I can comment on any difference between the report itself and the condition. The condition, perhaps we could put it this way, the condition reflects what we hope to have achieved.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. Yes. There may not be a great deal of difference between them.
Follow up on that. Just, if I may, can I just follow up on, particularly about condition 28? Are you saying that what the Shire is proposing to be to achieve on that is obviously sound rating is an outcome? Are they saying that the solution is a plexiglass fencing, or are they saying it needs to be sound rate? Are you saying it needs to be sound rated to an appropriate design that's permeable?
No, that wasn't the intention. The intention really was, as this was facing Mecklenburg, and so it was to the south, further away from any adjoining residential development, it was more so the aesthetic appearance of the fencing. And regarding the plexiglass material, as on the plans provided, they indicated that it was obscured. We were not sure to what extent that plexiglass was obscured. So if it was a darker, highly obscured type material and it had like a lack of opacity, then it wouldn't really be conducive of the residential aesthetic of the area. So it was more just about that particular material. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, the questions don't, the conditions don't quite match up. From
Are you saying that condition should exclude specific reference to plexiglass and be a functional condition that relates to sound-rated fencing that demonstrates permeability to Meckleburgh Drive to your front, to the satisfaction of the Shire? Is that what you're?
No, because sound is not the critical factor here. Sorry, it's irrelevant in this context. It's really just the appearance of the material. If it is an opaque material, that's what we'd like to see there, that it was actually a visually permeable material as opposed to an opaque material. That's why it refers to details of its permeability. I think the sound rating, it was just the material was referred to on the plans as sound rated plexiglass, but really we're just interested in the permeability, not so much the sound rating. So it is a bit of a convoluted way for it to be written. Yeah, I admit that.
Okay, Councillor?
Yeah. I clarify then that I think you're trying to achieve three things with the condition here: the visual permeability, the sound issue, and also the aesthetics. But maybe the condition doesn't capture that at the moment.
Yes.
That comment.
What I would say is we're not familiar with that product and we don't know to what degree it's permeable. And that's why we've recommended as a condition, so we can learn more about it as a part of the applicant going about fulfilling the condition.
Okay. Yeah. Any further questions of the officers?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the footpath and the laneway, because obviously with the change of the structure of this from where the parking would have been from the daycare centre to where it is now, and I think the issue with the having the laneway, which is going to be the most high traffic entry and exit point to the daycare centre, plus I think the issue with no footpath is there's no refuge. So if they were to just, like, a pedestrian was to therefore use it when it becomes this quite a high traffic road now, there's literally nowhere that the property boundaries are right on both sides. So until we know what's going to be on the other side of the road, that could become a fence or a garage or something. There could be no refuge for pedestrians, which when you're talking about children and prams and high traffic, we don't have a traffic management plan for this now. That's my concern is the consideration of that. So I'm not sure if you guys have any suggestions as to how that could be addressed in this process.
No, you're quite right. And that results from a separate process being the subdivision process. The nature of laneways by virtue of their width is that there's no physical space within the 6 metres to accommodate a footpath. They're not typically spaces where you want to encourage pedestrians. And that's how that results. It's not something that the determination of this application, which is within its boundaries, can necessarily solve.
Yeah. So there's nothing within this application that we can look at to address that potential issue?
My recommendation would be no.
And I just following on from that, officers, I'm assuming where it says future release on the plan, that's for the residential component. That would be a side boundary, is that correct? For a lot abutting the laneway? There are two components on the opposite side of the laneway. One is a future release. That's what it says. I'm assuming that's for residential land. Is that correct?
I think I don't have the subdivision plan in front of me, but yeah, there's basically between Hargreaves Lane to the north of Pinia Lane, on the western side, adjacent to Frohawk, I think the intention for that is to be, residential development, but to the site to the east, that cell adjoining Lesham Nortia Ave, that's the intention of that is to be the primary commercial precinct there. So this site abuts both, residential, it's likely, and commercial to the north.
You don't know whether there's a footpath on that southern boundary of that future release and the commercial site?
No, because we have no details of that space at all at this point.
Potentially you could put a condition on it to have a footpath?
Within the boundaries of that development, sure.
Yes, okay. Maybe we'll consider a footnote, an advice note. It's the same proponent. Okay.
Yes, understood.
Right, we can discuss that. Okay, further questions of the council? Yes, Member Lafanti.
Thank you. I'm following on from Member Heidelberg's question, is specifically relating to traffic. Can you speak about the conclusions in the report? So the RA speaks about traffic movement and it talks about the development going on, the subdivision going on, and it actually indicates that there's essentially no concerns raised. So what I'm trying to get my head around is can you speak any further about the comments in the report and the comments raised in today's meeting about discrepancy or concerns around discrepancy in generation of traffic, and particularly whether or not the Shire and its relevant officers have any concerns with traffic congestion in the design of the development and the subdivision that's going on at present?
Sure. There's lots of angst amongst our local community in these growing areas about road access. And that is because at present, Leschenoltia Avenue, which is a neighbourhood connector, a strategic road link, doesn't connect with John Archibald Drive to the north of this site. And once that connection is being constructed as we speak, and once that road links with John Archibald Drive, it'll provide another way out of this subdivision and the one to its south. And we anticipate that will resolve those concerns expressed by our community.
And will those concerns, so thank you for that. So my question was around the concerns raised about congestion associated with this development, given access off the rear lane, and concerns around the information we have about traffic numbers, particularly being generated by the development and use of that lane, and concerns around the functioning of the immediate road network associated with this development. Your report appears to indicate some commentary from your engineering team. Can you speak further to that, or do you have engineering members present that can speak to that?
We don't have members present, but there was no major concerns expressed by our technical people. And we just observed that this site has excellent access to Leschenoltia, which would then take cars, to John Archibald and beyond. So from our perspective, it has excellent road linkages to the broader network.
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Following on from that, is it that they considered the egress only onto Mecklenburg to be a positive in terms of taking the traffic on Pioneer Lane away from it, so that most people, I'm assuming that the thought was access would be into the site from Pinea, but the majority of egress would probably be on Mecklenburg. Was that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Any further questions of the officers? If not, we'll move on the agenda. We'll move to the report and the recommendations contained therein. Before we can do that, I need a mover. Is there a mover to the recommendation as submitted to us? Okay. Moved. Member Lafanti. Seconder. Councillor Boland. Member Lafanti.
From my perspective, I am satisfied that a childcare centre on this site is consistent with the planning framework in terms of the site provisions, the Margaret River local planning, the Augusta-Margaret River local planning scheme 1, associated plans, including the structure plan, Rapids Landing Village structure plan, noting the site residential zoning and that this particular land use is a discretionary use. I'm supportive of the design of the proposal. It's in a unique site in that it has street frontage to all 4 sides, quite unique from my perspective in considering childcare centres. It also has separation from the residential areas through those network road connectors. From my perspective, the design is actually appropriate. It's sited reasonably central on the location on the site with parking on one side. Retention of the tree, quite a significant tree, is a good outcome, and I'm pleased to see that the applicant has identified it both on site plan and has been discussed in relation to the proposal. I don't have any general concerns about the traffic movement. I have a broader concern that was raised earlier through our today's meeting. It's just that the numbers associated with the traffic volumes that have been identified, I am a little bit comforted by the comments provided by the officers that they are of the opinion that the completion of the road network, particularly Leschenault Avenue, will in fact provide a significant relief to parking and movement in that area, and so therefore is appropriate. At this juncture, I would like to move an amendment.
Amendment 1.
My amendment 1 reads to condition 28. I'm seeking to modify it. I have got some words for it. I'll just get those. I've just sent them through to Harriet. They're just going to put them on the board for everybody to see. And they are adding, you can see removal of the word sound rated plexiglass shall. And then it just says, so the condition would read, prior to the lodgement of a building permit, details of the boundary fencing material and design demonstrating permeability to Mecklenburg Drive frontage shall be provided to the satisfaction of the Shire.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Boland?
Yes, with possibly an amendment.
If you want to tweak it, we might as well get it clear now.
Yeah, I think the aesthetics are a significant part of it. We include that. I'm not entirely sure, but it could be that demonstrating permeability and aesthetics.
My intention was to make that up in the word design. That would be, but I'm happy to put design and material. Oh, we've got materials. Let's see.
Was there a question of aesthetics or was there a question of permeability? I think the officers only raised the issue of permeability because they weren't satisfied, weren't familiar with that particular plexiglass.
You can add, you could add if you wanted boundary fencing material / comma aesthetics and design if that wanted that in there. And so I had thought the word design might encompass it all, but really you're looking at we add that in there, please, if you just to put it on the board, if you don't mind. So after the word fencing material, put comma aesthetics and then and design. And that would be what I'll be moving onto the table.
Okay.
That amendment.
All right, okay. Yes, Member Lafanti.
It really reflects the conversation we had, and officers confirmed that it was more around the material they were concerned of. It was not as much around the sound rating, given the site's location and what it adjoins, and therefore it really is to clarify and reflect that in the condition.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, wish to speak?
Yes, I think we've improved condition 28,
Okay.
what it was previously.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak to that amendment? If not, back to the mover. If not, I'll put the amendment. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Finally, I'll just make some final comments. I am comfortable with the number of parking bays on site. I note that this has indicated by the report complies. In fact, it's got a slight greater number than the calculation that's considered appropriate. I am also comfortable that the other variations, including the sign, it says it's a non-illuminated pylon sign, but it's actually quite small, being, according to the material we have in front of us, only at 2 metres in height. And I think the language in the report also referred to it as more of wayfinding rather than necessarily significant signage. Overall, the design of the proposal in terms of its aesthetics and materials is consistent with residential form and scale. I know it's a larger building, but it is a low-level, single-level. Overall, I'm supportive of this proposal. I also note that the site, the area does encourage and promotes a commercial development further adjoining its site, and therefore the interface of this will not impact the surrounding development.
Thank you. Councillor Boland, a seconder.
Yes, I support the recommendation overall, with 2 reservations, which I'll come back to in a moment. But I think there's a lot of positive aspects to this application. It makes a lot of sense to amalgamate the lots, and that's one of the things I was going to come back to. That will avoid potential conflict between commercial and residential uses on this site. I think it's a good site for a service like this. It's good to see services going into that area of Margaret River. That's quite a rapidly expanding area, the southern residential area, and this will be a useful addition. I think that's also going to be helpful in terms of the development of the road, which has been mentioned, which has been a long-standing issue, that there wasn't the connection along Leschenaultia Avenue out to John Archibald Drive, and this will contribute to that, the completion of that, which hopefully is fairly soon. We've covered the issue with the landscaping and fencing by in that condition. That was, I think, really the only standard condition as it was referred to. The reservations I have around it are in terms of the amalgamation of the lots. I would think that we foreshadow an amendment that we do include a condition that there is amalgamation. I know that there's the overall subdivision, but I think it may be useful to add it here as well.
You wish to move an amendment now?
We could deal with that now. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Condition that the lots 221, 222 and 223 amalgamated into one lot prior to occupation at the site.
Those lots don't exist. This is a portion of an overall lot that exists at the moment. Rather than that, we probably just say that if you want to put a condition on that, all development for the childcare centre to be undertaken on one lot.
Or would it be that the proposed lots 221, 222?
They're not proposed, they're on a structure plan and identified by numbers. You could say that the lots are shown on the structure or the local development plan. More to the point, I think what you're trying to achieve is one lot for this development.
Correct.
So
Just some words.
yes.
The proposed site, the subject of this development, to be contained on one lot prior to occupation.
Yeah, that sounds. Yep,
Yes.
happy with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Councillor, sorry,
You-
Andy.
Well crafted, councillor. You've moved that.
Credit.
You moved that amendment. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Member Lafanti. You wish to speak further on that, Councillor Boland?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just say it reflects what we're all trying to clarify, which is the development in its form needs to stay within one lot, which will obviously ensure that both building and parking is retained and connected directly to the development.
Okay, thank you. Any other member wish to speak to that amendment? If not, I'll put it to a vote. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay.
I have
a
concern around the congestion on Pioneer Lane and lack of pedestrian access or refuge. And I think it was discussed earlier that possibly we could include a condition that with the adjoining developments like north of this site, that there be footpaths as part of those developments. So
given that that's not the boundary of the application is this lot,
yes,
it'd be a bit hard to put a condition on some land further to the north, maybe an advice note to the proponents.
I hope that would achieve the result.
Yeah,
I think is probably needed on the site, because we're talking about a narrow lane.
Yes.
We're talking about a lot of traffic going.
Given that it's access to that lane, then if we could probably thinking about the nexus between that development to the north and this one and the structure plan, an advice note that the proponents give consideration to the incorporation of a footpath on the northern side of Pioneer Lane as part of future development on that land. Yes.
That's as far as we can go, because we're not, it's obviously not
Yes.
sites across the road, but just dealing with this site. But
Wording to that effect. That so it's amendment number 2. 3, sorry. Councillor Boland.
Something up.
The proponents.
Could I make a suggestion, if I may? My suggestion is that the matter that we're dealing with is directly the subject site, and what we're talking about currently, as I understand, is outside of the boundary of the site. My suggestion might be that it be in a device note that reads that the proponents of this subject site give consideration to pedestrian access from Pioneer Lane. I'm somewhat concerned about tying the public spaces on the other side of the road to this site in terms of the planning link. So that were my suggested wording is that the new advice note reads that the proponent give consideration to improving pedestrian access from Pioneer Lane.
I'm happy with that as far as tying it to development to the north. Depending on the development to the north, it may in fact require a footpath there if they're trying to get people to access that development to the north. Are you happy with that wording?
possibly it needs to be more specific about being across the north to the north, which I think you're talking to.
We certainly can't have it on the south because the Pioneer Lane will be constructed as part of the subdivision, and that's occurring now. So development on the north. Yes, Councillor, you've got a question.
Yes, thank you. I was just looking at, if we're considering just the application today, they're concerned that if you look at page 19, the footpath actually goes to Pinia Lane and then the bin storage is next to it. Is there possibly something we can do with that design to stop the footpath before it goes to Pinia Lane and have the bin storage moved or something or included in that space, so therefore the pedestrians aren't encouraged to go that way, they're encouraged to turn left and take the path around the daycare centre?
Sorry, I didn't quite get that, councillor.
If you look at page 19, the footpath in front of the daycare, the childcare centre goes to Pinia Lane. Is there an amendment we can make to change that to stop short of Pinia Lane and move the bin storage so that it doesn't encourage people to head towards Pinia Lane on the footpath, but encourages them to head south and use the existing pathway network?
I think designing it in such a way, it probably, I don't like designing things. I think it's difficult for a panel to start redesigning. If we've got genuine concerns about footpath and the laneway and want the proponents to have a look at it now, then it's probably a deferral rather than us redesigning the plan.
Yeah, I was just trying to find something within this application that we could, because at the way it looks like it's encouraging, that footpath goes straight to Pinia Lane. So it's kind of assuming that pedestrians would come and go from that point.
Well, if pedestrians are going to come and go via Pinia Lane, they're more than likely go through the driveway crossover rather than onto the footpath. There's a lot of ifs and buts about doing those sorts of changes. I think we can't incorporate a footpath. It's a pity that the proponents who made the change didn't think that people would be using that, but and incorporate a footpath there during that process. But it's a bit late now if it's under construction. I think it's just that there is a potential to put a footpath on the northern side with future development. At this stage, it's implicit that the proponents of this child centre are proponents over there, so we can only encourage. The Shire is now aware of concerns of this panel about footpaths on Pinia Lane, and perhaps they should take the initiative during the course of any application for that area to encourage the proponents to put a footpath there. So getting back to the amendment 3. Member Lafanti, did you have the wording there?
My suggested was slightly different from what you were speaking about. It was just a new advice note that the proponent give consideration to improving pedestrian access from Peony Lane.
All right. Well, I think that doesn't bring in the northern side, but it's implicit that they would. It's the only way they could give consideration to.
I'd like to amend to be fairly specific about.
Well, you're moving it, so if you want to use that wording and change craft wording.
Just additional to that, by consideration of a footpath on the future release and future shopping district sites on the northern side of Pinia Lane.
Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor Duff. Okay, so you have the wording there? You don't.
So what I've got written down here is that new advice note that the proponent give consideration to providing in consideration to the provision of a footpath on the northern side of Peony Lane. I just took that as you were speaking.
Is that you happy
That's
with
fine,
that?
yes.
Okay, all right. Well, we've got the wording crafted, so you've explained what you want. So do you wish to speak further on it?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, Councillor Darth, do you wish to speak on it?
Yeah, I know this is it's good to be able to put it as a footnote. Yeah, it will be quite a big concern with if there are parents and children trying to use this laneway to cut across and access the shopping centre or whatever future development goes in there. I'm just concerned because in the current way with this development, there is no refuge if pedestrians are sharing that space with vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Any other member wish to speak to that amendment? Yes, Member Lafante.
I don't agree with the amendment. I understand the sentiment and
sorry, it is an advice note.
Sorry,
Yes.
the advice note, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
I understand the sentiment and I understand that it is a proposed advice note. My reasoning for it is twofold. One, and I suppose the primary one is that the site is bounded by all roads on all four sides. And the advice note would essentially attempt to preempt or what happens outside of the site as part of the subdivision and the overall estate planning. And my view is that if this issue is so critical, it would be something that would essentially defer a proposal because I don't see how any of this can appropriately be attached to this proposal when it all deals with land that's outside and potential alternate development that occurs beyond the boundary of this site. So I have reservations about putting conditions on that or advice notes, sorry, that are really outside the boundary of the development and the responsibility of this development, notwithstanding the applicant and the developer may be the same party. For me, it's a planning principle. We're dealing on a specific section of land that we're dealing with.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I'm going to support the amendment for the advice note. The proponents, the original use of part of this site for a childcare centre, there was no demonstration of a layout. Now that the layout's occurred, it shows that there will potentially be access by pedestrians from Pioneer Lane. I'm not sure to what extent, but given that there is going to be commercial development to the north and to the east, and there are linkages from the north and the east, but it'll take people down to Mecklenburg. I think the intention will be to walk down the laneway to get to the centre. So yes, even though it's a 6 metre wide laneway, it will have people wandering through there, wheeling prams, etc. So I think it's worth pursuing an advice note for a responsible developer to give consideration in development to the north. So I'm supporting the amendment. No further discussion. I'll put it back to Councillor Boland to close debate.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think we're being fairly mild about what we're asking the developer to consider, and I think hopefully it would appeal to them as a useful addition to how this precinct is going to develop. So I think it's worth us putting it there, at least as an advice note at this stage.
Okay, all right. I'll put the amendment to the vote. All in favour? That's 3 against, 2. It's carried. Okay. Councillor Boland, you wish to continue?
Well, I think the only other thing that arose was the Shire land. Possibly we don't need to deal with that. I think there's some issues there around whether those parking bays are going to be drop-off bays or whatever. But I think that's probably something that for the Shire to work out what happens there. I don't think we really need to deal with it, but the traffic and the congestion around this site is potentially an issue. I think it's capable of resolution because the around the parking capacity, but getting advice that it is sufficient. So hopefully that will work out for the best. But overall, I think it's a very positive development that would service that area of Margaret River particularly well.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak? Yes.
I'd like to move for an additional condition. I'd like to add a condition that a transport impact statement / assessment be prepared by a suitably qualified traffic engineering consultant in accordance with the WAPC transport assessment guidelines prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Darth, yes, thank you. Member Hergott, you wish to speak?
Yeah. This development, while it's an appropriate location, it seems to be fairly consistent with the structure plan and the future planning for this particular area. The lack of supporting information or document evidence that the traffic that's going to be generated by this development in the context of the proposed road network is concerning. While I appreciate that there was probably a necessity in terms of demonstrating that an additional access to Mecklenburg, which is obviously not consistent with the approved structure plan, could be justified and was necessary, is appreciated. But in terms of the overall development, there's going to be a significant traffic generation associated with this particular development. I'm not necessarily of the opinion that it's going to generate less than half of what was originally estimated in, I think, the documentation supporting the structure plan. And I think there's some need to demonstrate what the impacts will be on all four legs, particularly in the context of Pinia Lane, which was, I believe, intended initially just to serve residential uses in the context of the structure plan. So for these reasons, I believe that we need to have a TIS prepared prior to issuance of building permit, and I'm proposing condition there too.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Darth, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I commend this amendment because I also have a few traffic management concerns about this area. I'm not sure if the amendment can include something about investigating the entry and exit points. I feel like maybe they are the wrong way round, or possibly it should just be a one-way from the lane and out to Mecklenburg, or the other way around. I'm not sure if that can be investigated to make sure that that is included in the development, that it is done the correct way, because I feel like possibly it's the way it's in this is not correct.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to that amendment?
I will make a comment on that. The condition is fairly innocuous from my perspective in its current language. So really, as I understand it, it's really ensuring that the traffic movement and management intensity are appropriately addressed through the proposal, and that obviously if any issues come out of it, they would be subject to discussion with the Shire, but they're not fundamentally changing the layout of the proposal. And because the condition is not fundamentally changing the layout of the proposal, I'm comfortable that the development as we have in front of us can occur. And I'm also comfortable that this should reiterate the commentary that has been given supporting the proposal, which was that the traffic movement in the area is, and the design of the proposal is sufficient, and the traffic movement associated with the proposal will be sufficient given the overall design of the estate and the access legs, particularly along Augusta-Margaret Drive, that should not substantially change the development form. So I don't see this as being so unreasonable in its request.
Okay, Councillor Boland.
Yes, I'm supportive of the intent of this. I was just looking at the conditions regarding access and parking at the moment. I was wondering whether this can sit additional to those or whether there is any conflict with the Condition 8 about a detailed vehicle parking construction plan. I'm wondering whether is it consistent or I'd be happy if it can just be additional and we add it there as whatever 8A or whatever, but I just raised that issue. Any views?
No. From my view, I think you're asking whether is it the parking or the traffic that you've got concern about? Because the Condition 8 really talks about the design of the parking area. I think this is more fundamental what Member Hergot is asking for, or seeking clarification for.
Yes, it seems like it could sit additional to the other conditions we have. So,
okay. Look, I'm not in favour of this amendment. I think that the proponents, I think perhaps what they haven't done is tied the structure planning with this site planning. They've submitted a plan showing access and egress. We're supportive of the development. I'm not sure what's being asked for in this. There seems to be some concern about traffic volumes from Member Hergot, and I don't think there's anything else because the actual structure plan for the area, there was a report for the locality prepared by a traffic engineer that's been adopted, and the global traffic generation inclusive of a childcare centre on this site was part of that application or part of that traffic plan. So I'm not quite sure where we're heading with this particular application. What happens if we're approving the development, but a traffic plan might show up fundamental flaws that says it shouldn't have been approved? So I'm really not sure where we're going. I think if you're concerned about traffic generation, access and egress, then perhaps we should be moving to defer this application so that those issues can be sorted out before we approve it. That's my comment. Moving back to the mover.
I take those. Yeah. Well, I don't disagree necessarily. I would just like to clarify that my understanding is the structure plan did not envision childcare on this site. It was some sort of residential type urban use, if you like.
Local development plan.
Or the LDP, if you like. Okay. I just would like to, I think this condition would provide a comfort level prior to building permit that, and nobody is disputing that the roads have been master planned as part of the development of the overall structural plan and the LDP for the this particular area. just need a reasonable demonstration that I'm not concerned about the access arrangement per se, but that the real laneway can accommodate the types of traffic and the movements. It could very well be that the distribution of traffic along the four frontages is a reasonable and a fair way of accommodating the traffic within the area. The concern I have, the information that's been provided is insufficient, in my opinion, and incorrect in some others that I've perceived the information that's been provided. And I think that from a council perspective, I think the comfort level needs to be had as to how traffic's going to be accommodated in the area as planned. So.
Okay, all right. I'll put the amendment to a vote. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Okay. Moving on to next speaker. Have we all spoken on the item? Yep, I don't think I have. No.
Sorry, I just have not very many comments, just that I actually feel that this is a great location for the childcare centre. I think the design is appropriate for the residential zoning. And I'm really pleased to see the incorporation of the significant tree into the children's playground and the landscaping. And I'd like to note that I'm happy to see the public art will be going into the development as well. It is actually a very good location for before and after care. We need more of this, especially there's nothing of this like in south of Margaret River. And it's within a very short and easy access. It's just north of the primary school. So I feel this might actually help with a bit of the traffic issues in and out of the estate by parents being able to come in earlier and later as well. So I think it'll be a great addition to the village centre that is started to be designed. And I'm really pleased to hear from the Leicester Group today that the Leicester-Noltia Ave will be open permanently before construction of this daycare centre, because I feel most of the public submissions about this application were concerned with traffic management getting in and out of the estate. So yeah, I'm happy to support the recommended authority recommendations and conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. I too support the proposal. It's consistent with the planning framework, which is under the East Margaret River Structure Plan and the local development plan for Stage 8 and Leicester-Noltia Avenue. The premises location is appropriate. It's located adjacent to a commercial area. The design of the centre recognises that to the north and to the west there's proposed residential, and therefore the parking area is located closest to that area. And one of the main sources of noise with the children's play area is to the east, adjacent to the commercial area. The residential properties have also been acknowledged through the supporting amenity impact reports on acoustics, fencing, and parking. The hours of operation are also constrained to have minimal impact on the residents nearby. Concerns raised during the public consultation regarding parking have been addressed, and the design of access into and out of the centre, I think, is a good result, albeit no pedestrian access on Pioneer Lane, and I think that should be addressed by the proponents, although the extent of use of Pioneer Lane by pedestrians at this stage is unknown. The other concerns regarding compliance with other legislation in terms of parking ratios and staff ratios, we don't need to worry about that. The design review panel looked at the design of the building and the location of play areas, etc., and it was fully supported by them. So I'm supporting the proposal, and I trust that the proponents look at a pedestrian area, pedestrian access way to the north. So that being the case, I'll pass back to the mover of the recommendation.
No further comments.
Further comment. All right, I'll put the recommendation as amended to the vote. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving the agenda to item 4, no Form 2 DAP applications. Item 5, Section 31, consideration there are none. Part D, other business. SAT application, Supreme Court Appeals. They're listed on our website. I'll close the meeting at 12:12 p.m. Thank you, Councillor Boland and Councillor Darth, for your participation. Thank you, other panel members, council staff, and the proponents, and our secretarial staff. Thank you.